You are watching Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. There are plenty to be discussed for the entire year. And that's why, as the first episode for the new year, we want to focus and zoom in on one company that is on the lips of many investors. That company is, of course, Serba Dinamik. Here in the headquarters in Shah Alam, I'll be discussing with Datuk Karim, the CEO and founder of Serba Dinamik, about some of the plans that the company is embarking, how it is coming along, and of course, some of the diversification of not just the market, but the businesses that they are pursuing. These are just some of the talking points that I'll be speaking with Datuk Karim very shortly. For now, enjoy Notepad 2021. Thank you, Datuk, for taking the time to speak with us. It's always fascinating to come to the headquarters of a PLC to explore what is in the building, what is about to happen. And one of the things that I want to ask you is, there seems to be a lot of floors in the same building that is dedicated to projects that are outside of the oil and gas business. And you know, if you read the directory, one floor to another is very widely diversified. So we want to touch on the business diversification that will happen. But I want to ask first about an outstanding year that you guys have had. 2020, you guys have grown your order book from 3 billion or sorts last year to 10 billion, bringing your net order book to over 18 billion ringgit. Talk through us how 2020 has been for you guys.
Firstly, Ibrahim Sani, thank you for having me here. And rightfully, as what you have mentioned, 2020 has been quite a very challenging year for entrepreneurs, for enterprises. And we are also one of those entities which has been undergoing those process. But I think one of the things that differ us to a lot of other parties is we put the sustainability strategy as the key things on our business holistic plan. So because of that, we have managed to drive through this difficulty and all the challenges that has come towards the business community, which is basically the COVID-19 pandemic situations. And talking about this sustainability, this is where we are saying that Serba Dinamik management has worked out a business model in such a way that it does not depend on one source of revenue. And I am also not saying that we have diversified from the core prospectus of capabilities that we have announced way back more than 4 years ago. It is still within those 4 core activities, which is operation maintenance, EPCC, which stands for engineering, procurement, constructions and commissioning, and then the ICT component together combine what we term it now as a tech entity or platform, and also the educations and training. So we have not diversified from this core competency. What we have done is we strengthened our capability and add in additional in-house resources which can roll out and also carry out these respective services to the customer. So it helps very well because in pandemic situations, the ICT tech divisions has contributed a lot. And it also supported the O&M and also the EPCC element. Okay,
we'll go through deep down all the 4 pillars that you spoke of. But first, we have to address the profitability of the company. Right now, the ROE is last measured at something around 18%. We're looking at a profit of over 500 million ringgit. We're looking at total shareholder returns of about 3 billion ringgit, bringing it to about 18%. This is slightly above average in terms of ROE for the companies in your industry. What does it tell you about investor confidence into your company right now?
In any situations or a company, there will be a lot of people who appreciate and also look at from the positive perspective of it. And then at the same time, there will be always critics, and I would say in our case, a lot of critics that has been forwarded over to us are more on the positive in nature, trying to alert us and put us on our feet so that we do not cross the boundary that will bring the company into a negative or unsuccessful kind of business venture.
You're talking about your gearing ratio, basically.
Gearing ratio is one of it, and of course, Serba Dinamik is a company that grow very fast, and the fact to that is we prove ourselves to be able to produce the results required from all the scopes of the contracts that's given over to us, and then our expansions and positioning into Industrial Revolution 4.0 helps a lot, because that differentiate and add value to what we can do against our competitor, which does not have this element of capability.
A few weeks ago, you announced an interim dividend during your third quarter announcement. Full year announcement is upcoming. Do we expect a full year dividend of sorts coming in from Serba Dinamik for investors?
Well, I would say that we do have a dividend policy, which it says that it will be at least 30% of the PAT, profit after tax, and historically we have successfully able to fulfill this policy as what we have announced it to our shareholders. So, in short, what I am trying to say here is, moving in towards the end of 2020, as far as our assessment on what we have achieved from the management data collections, we should be, inshallah, be able to fulfill this commitment of at least 30% of PAT of the results that we are going to close up towards the end of 31st December 2020.
Following which, you're making a private placement in less than 3 weeks from now. Hopefully, it will get the approval from the shareholders in an EGM on January 20th.
Correct, yes.
And you're looking to raise anywhere between 500 to 600 million from this private placement. What would the money be used for?
We are telling our shareholders, and we have actually gone out for a roadshow, and we have also gotten the initial approval from the authority, and this way we are allowed to plan and organize our EGM as what you have mentioned just now. So we believe that this window of January is still the best slot that we can do, on the basis that we foresee there are a lot of other prospects and bidding and jobs that we are working on at the moment will materialize. And before, it ended up in the situations that when this thing comes in, we have insufficient fund to run those prospects.
You're talking about Teluk Ramunia, you're talking about Abu Dhabi.
Those are things which we have gotten in hand already. So what we are planning here now is we can utilize this fundraising exercise of the private placement to look at these existing contracts or prospect which we have already signed up. But at the same time, we are looking along the entire journey of 2021, and there will be a lot of other things that we believe we will be able to close up. So what it means here is the profitability that we generated will be standby to run these existing incoming potentials, and the existing one that is gotten in hand, we are organizing this private placement to run these existing jobs in hand. Why we are doing this is because we are guided by the governance. As long as legally we have not signed up anything, we cannot make the declaration, we cannot make the announcement. So the announcement of this private placement, we have identified those which are already secured in hand. And those coming in prospect, we are going to use the existing profitability that we generate to stand by to support those additional things coming in. So in that manner, what we are saying is we are planning ahead to make sure that those prospects coming in will be executed also effectively. And then at the same time, we are not violating the governance and also the rules and regulations set up by Bursa.
It has also been reported that you're going to use some of the funds through the private placement to fix the gearing issue, to address the debts. It's been reported, and correct me if I'm wrong, 100 million will be paid off, will be used to be paying off about 600 million debt.
Yes.
So it's not just about funding future projects, it's about managing your gearing ratio as well.
Correct, yes.
Do you think that because of this, I mean, from a financial analyst view, it seems sensible, you're trying to address debt via equity, but at the same time there's this bigger issue of share price volatility that Serba Dinamik has been going through for the past 4 years. I was there during the IPO, I was there 1 year after that. It's so much fun reading and analyzing the reports of Serba Dinamik, but at the same time it does breed that whole conversation of following the private placement, there will be some dilution of share price. What's the story there? Are you going to be comfortable with how things are going to happen post-private placement, assuming it happens?
Yeah, firstly, we would like to also highlight that there is no bad intentions or unproductive plan of why Serba Dinamik goes for private placement. It's purely also for the interest of the shareholders, because the company is growing and jobs opportunity that has been offered to us are plenty. And we cannot afford to decline all this kind of prospect and opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. So in a way, what I am trying to say is this fundraising exercise is to bring in this opportunity of jobs, execute it in a successful manner, and with that we can return back those profitability back to our shareholders.
And it's going to be very impressive because 2020 has, at least for the first 9 months cumulative, it's been promising, and I'm pretty sure your full year numbers are going to be exceptional as well. So let's talk now into that whole thing that we promised just now, that 4 pillars. We'll start off with your biggest revenue contributor, your EPCC and your OEM. We've all known that you are busying yourselves for the past few years in diversifying market in Africa, in Central Asia. What's the story there? What's the progress in developing your business in these frontier markets?
Important point that we would like to emphasize is Serba Dinamik management is of the opinion that geographical positioning of the company is very important, because we cannot be assured that a respective country that we are active in will always or forever very stable politically. They will definitely undergo some turbulence, instability in terms of politics and so on. And if that happens, then a lot of our contracts in hand, jobs in hand will be jeopardized. So if that happens, then the backup mitigation plans that the management is looking at is we will pool the resource to other more stable country. So how can that be done is through this geographical positioning in different regions. So it seems that the African region has been opening up a lot of prospect and opportunity to Serba Dinamik. So at the moment, we have the chloroalkali plant in Tanzania. We have secured data center tier 4 developments and constructions in the Republic of Guinea. We are working on quite a number of other prospects in Senegal and a few neighboring countries around that. And I would also like to say that our national oil company Petronas is also quite active in certain part of Guinea, which we can tap onto those kind of presence of Petronas over there. And one very important point that I would like to touch on here is our entry into the African continent or region is with the advice of Islamic Development Bank. Islamic Development Bank, quite a number of those African countries are members, and being members of Islamic Development Bank, they know the background, credit worthiness of respective countries and so on. So we are following and getting the guides from Islamic Development Bank, which we have appointed them as our advisor for that particular region. And I also would like to highlight here that one of the criticisms and the negative perceptions of people on the Serba Dinamik entering into the African continent is those countries are not really the top tier country from the economic profile and achievement globally. But I would like to say that Serba Dinamik is looking at sustainability. What does it mean by this? We have to plan out in the next 2 to 3 years where Serba Dinamik will be. And this African region is a very potential area of growth. I have seen the blueprint, I have seen the holistic master plan under the African Union, and I would say that I'm very, very impressed with what they plan. And
yeah, it's not about the promise and the prospects, Dato'. It's about the risk that comes along with that prospect. We're looking at governmental risk, governance risk, we're looking at political risk, currency risk, we're looking at geographical risk and also environmental risk, all of which ranks high when it comes to African continent. Pair that with the kind of returns that you want to speak of, high GDP, high growth rate, high birth rate, now getting low infancy mortality. So yeah, it's just that's how it is. That's where the eyebrows is raised, not about the prospects that it brings, but the risk that it has as well. What would be some of your comments when it comes to these kind of risks?
Fully agreed. But at the end of the day, I can throw out another question: which country in the world is stable now?
Malaysia, very clear.
Look at United States of America, the father and the world police and so on. What is going on in the United States of America? And plus other countries. So every country has their positive credits, and of course there are other weaknesses that is happening. So what I'm trying to say here is, of course, risk has always been the element that Serba Dinamik take into consideration before we put in the investment. As what I've mentioned, the first level of due diligence is based on what the Islamic Development Bank have guided us. The second risk of defense that we are putting forward is the decision-making people are on the ground and also talking and assessing the actual conditions of the country. And of course, we do not take up any contracts just openly as it is. We look into the contractual aspect of it, we make some credit check onto it, then we move on to it. So upon mentioning that, I would say that in the last 3 years of our presence over in that region, KPMG as our external auditor has not classified any of those revenue as bad debts. So meaning that it is something which we do, we claim, and we can bring in the revenue and profitability to the company.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more from Datuk Karim of Serba Dinamik. Welcome back. We continue our conversation with Datuk Karim of Serba Dinamik. On top of relying internally, your people are on the ground, you're looking at the risks up close and personal, you have risk mitigating strategies. The only thing that can make this work even better is, of course, to have strong, stable partners on the ground. IDB you mentioned, but it's also reported that you have over 20 partners, 23, 22 partners there in Africa.
Correct.
Who are these partners? What do they do? What kind of competency do they put on the table that can make it work for you for these kind of projects there?
They comprises of a different role and responsibility. Among others, I would say that they are active entrepreneurs, which is renowned to the community at where we are taking up the job. There will also be other parties acting as our sponsor, where they assist in terms of getting the work permit. They will assist in terms of when we have difficulty dealing with the regulator. And of course, other parties will be those who have the necessary network to get where the supply of materials, supply of workforce, and other historical kind of references, which can help us to ensure that we should not go and face those kind of difficulty when the projects runs. I would like to just put one very important point on this matter is Serba Dinamik management implemented what we call the walk the talk concept. What it means here is decision-making people, especially VP, senior VPs, and myself at my level, even to the corporate finance people, they from time to time goes down to the ground, they counter-check, talk, communicate, so that when problems arise, it can be mitigated immediately, rather than following a corporate structure in such a way that the subordinate reports to the superior, superior reports to another level. So if it goes through that process, at the end of the day, the problems that arise reach mitigation, effective mitigation actions a bit too slow. So the problems has rotten already, and there is no mitigations to be.
You didn't fix the problem at the root cause.
So this is one of the different working culture that we are implementing, and I would say that it has been very successful for the past more than 27 years plus.
That's exactly my point, because my next question will be moving away from your core segments to your non-core segments as it stands now, based on revenue contribution. If you look at revenue contribution per group, OEM as well as EPCC has been contributing a lot. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's a lot. But the more exciting things is now entering my domain, where we talk about technology, we're talking about digitization, we're talking about IT, we're talking about your SDIT company being based out of San Francisco, and talking to people from Stanford. Now this is really interesting conversations to be had. So while we understand that you have had close to 3 decades in building that core business of yours, and you've done successfully on an individual level as well as on a company level, both are very impressive. One questions whether or not Serba Dinamik has what it takes to push this through in terms of making the information technology segment a strong, contributor to the group in terms of revenue. What's your commentary on SDIT, and what's the story there?
We always believe in one proverb which people say that if you do not innovate, you are going to evaporate. So we have used this in our day-to-day management guides, and we are not saying that we are putting aside our developments in operation and maintenance. We are putting aside our developments in EPCC capability. No. What we are saying here is the investment that we have put into the O&M scope has reached a level which we say that it is at the moment sufficient. I give you an example. We have been known into the market to be a company that can do all this maintenance, repair, overhaul. But the difficulties that we are facing is we don't have the engineering capability to manufacture parts and components. We still have to go to a third party to get those kind of elements.
But Teluk Ramunya is one of them. You're building, I think, 10,000 tons of steel.
Yeah, Correct. That's what I'm saying, that our investment towards that direction is enough at the moment. What we are doing is we are nurturing those investments so that it can roll out to get the necessary returns that we want.
Okay.
So as a result of that, we need to look at the next area of growth for Serba Dinamik, because we have trajectory focus that we have committed to our shareholders. And there must be other areas of growth and developments to come in so that our trajectory projections can be achieved.
Okay, hang on. Nobody's going to argue that this trajectory is crucial, integral to building a sustainable company for the future. Nobody's going to argue that. But people are going to argue, is Serba Dinamik the right person to do this? What's your comment when it comes to these kind of questions?
Again, I would say that what we are doing in terms of positioning and strengthening our capabilities in the ICT tech is not something which we have not been doing. In our prospectus way back about 4.5 years when we launched it, ICT is part of the core competency. It's just that at that time we have not really put the real focus and investment to make sure that we can position ourselves as a prominent, recognized, reputable player.
Okay.
So since we have done on our O&M, we have done on our EPCC, now the focus is to build up this particular capability. And then of course as times goes by, the entire world is heading towards technology. Everybody is talking about Industrial Revolution 4.0. And the end results of this, we name it as frontier technology, is it helps organizations to be more efficient, and it helps organizations to become to produce and to have higher productivity.
Okay.
So with this kind of tools and technology, Serba Dinamik has to acquire it. So that is where we move and invest into this area in a big way. For the past 4.5 years, I would say that we are doing quite well, because at the moment we have managed to build and set up 4 important divisions: the cloud computing and data center. The second is the cyber security. Third is the AI, and of course the AI plays quite a very vital and important role, because AI entered into different segments, into the oil and gas segment, into the power generation segment, in the health segments, and so on. And the fourth division that we have managed to build up is the fintech division. So all these are something which we are putting in a lot of effort, and this growth comprises, or it targeted the customer or the domain or the prospect will be institutional, and also the mass consumer market.
You mean talk about customers?
Yes.
So you're not just thinking about retail retail customers, you're talking about institutional customers as well?
Yeah. An institutional customer is something which we have been serving and doing all this while. It's just that we have not been focusing so much on the consumer market. So consumer market is talking about the world populations of 7.7 billion.
Yeah.
So it's a big market.
I mean, of course.
Yeah.
But the problem here is on the number of players servicing these kind of customers currently, who are a little bit more advanced than you in terms of rolling out the solutions. When you talk about OEM, O&M, and EPCC, not many players are there. And therefore, it's kind of a blue ocean if you think about it. But this segment isn't. It's a red ocean strategy. I mean,
if we look at from the general perspective, I would say that you are right. But if you look at how Serba Dinamik strategizes itself, it is something which is different. I give an example.
Please say, yeah.
I give an example. Like for the AI. AI, like what I mentioned, is a diagnostic tools to help people to digest and diagnose the data that they have. So we use this AI very well actually in all the data of the equipments in power generation, in the oil and gas, and we have actually rolled out what we call it as a smart maintenance solution using AI. And that is something which a lot of other people is not doing. But we do it because the background, historical background of our experience and so on, bring us and guide us what is actually needed in the maintenance scope.
Yeah.
So that is on the AI. And when we touch onto issues of the consumer market, the consumer market, if we look at, let's say Grab. Grab is more for food, e-hailing, and so on and so forth. But we started off this fintech, the cashless payment system using QR code, and the latest one we are using the video identifications onto the parking system, which people is not heading into that particular area. So it's an area which is very niche in nature, and it's not competing with people like Grab, people like Uber, and Gojek, and so on. So it started in an area which other people are not in that area or that space yet. So I would say that we have been quite successful. In the context of Malaysia, we have more than 32 installations at the moment, and it's still growing. We have gotten the e-wallet from Bank Negara. We have constant discussion.
Sorry, you got the e-wallet license by Bank Negara?
Yes. For the parking scope.
You mean quick pay?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, we are in constant discussions with Bank Negara to look at expansions of the e-wallet scope, which I believe if things goes okay, we can add in the additional scope into that particular e-wallet. I'm just giving an example.
No, these are just flavors of what you're offering. I understand.
Correct. Yeah.
You were talking just now about Serba Dinamik walking the talk. Let's go through that. How serious are you in investing in this part of the division right now? I mean, let's talk about the private placement, for instance. Let's talk about some of the debts that you have. How much money is plonked into this particular business?
Well, I would say that in our internal discussions, we are always very conservative. Conservative in the sense that every single money that we spend means a lot, and we have to justify those spending to our shareholders when it comes to the returns that is generated by this particular investment. So upon mentioning this, we are looking at developing the expert capability. So what it means here is intensifying our R&D, and then roll out the proof of concept, and then with all our positioning in different geographical part of the world, we convince the customer if they are not confident to install that as a total system into the asset, carve up a certain area. We start off with a proof of concept, and from there we built up further contracts from there, and we've been quite successful on that. I give an example like those virtual and mixed reality capability. We roll out for one of the projects in our neighboring country. Is an oil and gas player over there, and it works very well during the pandemic because the expert cannot come in to train out the people. So we use the virtual and mixed reality capability to design those training packages, and everything is done on virtual, and the guide from the expert is also done through the virtual approach.
So that you can't share any numbers in terms of the amount of investments that you're sharing, at least a percentage across the four divisions that we're talking about.
Well, I would say that the actual cost for the entire project, the margin I would say is 50% as compared to the traditional O&M.
Yeah, your core business.
And so on. The GP is in the range of 15 to 20%. The net margin or net profit is average around 10 to 12%. But this is talking about GP of 50%.
Yes.
And net easily is in the range of 30 to 35%.
Yeah, you comfortable with these ratios? Do you want it
Yes,
to?
but as we move further into positioning in this particular area, definitely other capex will comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, the sample that I'm giving over to you is very much more onto the software part of it.
Wouldn't it be quicker to just acquire a company that has these core competencies already?
Yes, we are doing a mixture of a different approach.
One company that you tried to acquire, or has acquired partially at least, was an Indian company last
Yeah,
year.
Innova is one of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that coming along?
Is going very well. We owned about 30%.
And you got it at a discount, if I remember.
Yes, and the company is making profitability every year. But I think it's not the value of that profitability, because the contributions or the percentage that we own is not that sizable. What we value more is the accessibility to the pool of bedroom support professionals that we can get access to. And also the network that they have been in California for more than 15 years. So that helps our growth of expansions into territory, which is new to us. But these people has all the references and experience, so we can tap onto those kind of
I guess expertise,
yeah,
core
correct.
competencies.
Yeah.
We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more from Datuk Karim of Serba Dinamik. Welcome back. We continue our conversation with Datuk Karim of Serba Dinamik. Putting this all in one box and looking at Serba Dinamik Berhad as an entity, it's impressive, but at the same time, it's also puzzling into why you're traded at 10 times your earnings, and compared against your competitors, it's less. There are some lesser, of course, we're talking about averages. And based on your third quarter announcement, PE is about 10 times. What would be some of your message that you want to share out to prospective investors? Some of them are actually quite interested to shop around. It's early in the year, it's brand new, and I don't know whether I mentioned to you, we're airing this on the 1st of January, so a lot of new beginnings. So what would be some of the ideas that you want to share with them in terms of how they should view Serba Dinamik as a company or as a prospective investment?
Very good questions.
Why, thank you, Dato'.
Yeah. My view is I believe Serba Dinamik value is more than what it is traded at the moment. Based on the benchmark of the technology that we have and the solutions based on a sustainable strategy. But again, the market compositions and how they classified a company is slightly different. Why I'm saying this is because Serba Dinamik has a technology component inside what it is doing.
Yeah.
And then it also has EPCC, which is a general construction kind of capability. And then the O&M is a combination of some general capability plus some technology based inside there. So in terms of the assessment of analysts, it's quite tough and difficult for them to classify where is Serba Dinamik.
That's why my follow-up question is, is there a time and place for you guys to start to spin off some of the companies and making sure that you are classified according to your, your liking? It matches with what you know you are doing, with what the investors are trying to classify you as.
Yeah.
Are we looking at 3 or 4?
I would say that at the moment we do not believe that we need to do that.
No spin-offs?
Not at the moment, no spin-off, because we still need all these different components to strengthen further the positions of Serba Dinamik.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, but okay, so there's no spin-off, but and you're facing this. I don't know. I mean, I would call it regulatory challenges because they would
Correct.
classify you because
Exactly.
it's a
Yes.
checkbox. You
Sure, sure,
belong
sure,
here.
sure.
So, you know,
Yeah.
that's it, right? So with that issue that we are facing right now, what would be some of the ideas that you want to share with the investors?
Well, we have been in constant contact of what is happening in other part of the world. I give example like United States of America. They have the Nasdaq counter, Nasdaq. Nasdaq counter at one time it used to be technology based, but
Purely.
but if you are talking about Nasdaq of today, it
No,
it doesn't matter already.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is the way of how things are being done will change from time to time. How fast Malaysia can change, we are yet to see. But I put a challenge over to my management team that when we started off rolling out the package and the terminology of MRO, maintenance, repair, overhaul. At one time, before we introduced it into the local market, when people talk about MRO, it's talking about aeronautical.
Yeah.
It has to be aeronautical.
Yeah.
But we are putting a challenge saying that this is not true. I mean, MRO is a general engineering terminology, and it just depends on how people redefine and look at it. So what I'm trying to say here is we hope that like what you have mentioned, the regulatory guides and those kind of things, the boxes to be ticked and so on, will change soon. And hopefully with that, then the assessment on the way Serba Dinamik stands will be different.
You're talking about changing how people view the game, redefining capital markets, redefining securities and exchanges. Surely this is going to be a monumental task for folks like you in Serba Dinamik. Already you're doing so many other things right now, but you're also trying to redefine the market.
Yeah.
To a point where, not redefining, just updating the market, I would call it. Is 2021 going to be a busy year for you?
Yes, and I just want to add on another point on your previous argument of all these regulatory guides and the mindset that the community is looking at. What we are saying now is our next drive of moving Serba Dinamik to be valued higher is to look at foreign investment or investor into Serba Dinamik.
Now we're talking. Foreign investment is always a good idea.
Yeah, so these are some of the things that we are working quite closely with quite a number of IB and advisors in other parts of the world. Because at the end of the day, what we are saying is 30% of the revenue of Serba Dinamik is coming domestic from Malaysia. 70% is outside of Malaysia. So we are doing a lot of roadshows and efforts to bring in the international player.
So is a dual listing on the offering right now?
Not at the moment because we do not have that size yet.
Okay.
But
but you have that ambition.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it depends on how the company develop. But more importantly now is we need to get more foreign investor to come in to become a shareholder of Serba Dinamik.
What's the reception been during this? And already I'm sure doing roadshows during a pandemic is problematic, so to say the least. But
we have been talking to a lot of video conferencing kind of approach.
Where are these investors normally they speak to?
Well, they are spread across Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Middle East, some from US. So those are the
traditional markets.
Traditional investors that we are talking to,
and the reception?
not forgetting also UK.
Okay.
I would say the receptions is getting a stronger momentum at the moment because from all the proven records and achievements that we've done, and then especially when we managed to strike or secure that innovation hub at the value of 1.78 billion US dollar. A lot of multinational companies came to approach us to seek for joint ventures and other things related to that. So I would say that this is a starting point. of Serba Dinamik being recognized by the international community. And we hope that we can bring in more international value institutional shareholders into Serba Dinamik.
I don't know how much you can say this, but I can certainly, because I'm not a shareholder, nor am I an executive of your company. But it is currently trading at a discount. It is currently trading against your averages. It is trading at a discount. And of course, the share price is also quite interesting right now. But like I said, we alluded to earlier, share price volatility has always been the story about Serba Dinamik for the past 4 years. Hopefully, you can find some stability there. So perhaps some investor relations body should look at Serba Dinamik even closely to actually explore the kind of wealth that might be uncovered here.
Sure, yeah.
Like I said, you can't probably say that, but I can. But having said that, we have to draw this conversation to a close eventually. I've been talking to you for like an hour now. I want to ask you some of the, I guess, predictions that you have for this year. What do you think 2021 will bring? And you can't convolute your own wishes with your prediction. We have to acknowledge that fact. Sometimes you wish something for it to be true and then you predict it to be true. But from a person that has been around the block for quite some time and you've seen what works, what doesn't work, what is 2021 going to bring to folks like you and folks in this industry, especially people like me who are investing in companies like you?
I would say 2021, to the best of our evaluation and assessment, will be a good year. Why we are saying this is, number one, the vaccine is rolled out in a lot of countries, because the main challenge or the main difficulties that the entrepreneur and the business cycle is facing at the moment is the COVID-19 pandemic. With the vaccine coming in, of course it is going to be rolled out progressively in different countries. Border will open up and intra-country business will start, and factories will also start opening, and as a result of that, the supply and demand will also improve much further. So with that kind of situations, the primary sector of the oil and gas, which people always align Serba Dinamik to, which should not be the case. But again, that is the market perceptions and alignment that...
I mean, it is in your prospectus, come on.
Yeah, but we have been explaining with the facts of the order book that we have, the compositions between the oil and gas and the non-oil and gas. The order book of 18 point approximately of that particular figure that you have mentioned,
18.5 billion.
Is 40% of it is oil and gas, 60% is non-oil and gas. So what it means here is, moving forward 2021, 2022 and so on, more of this order book that are not oil and gas will roll in. To be converted to become sales and revenue of the company. So we are saying that the dependency on the oil and gas will be further reduced. But whatever it is okay. Moving forward to 2021, we believe that the oil and gas industry will appreciate and will have more active kind of activities going on.
Fantastic, okay.
And then, of course, the tech activities were forever active kind of business surroundings and also events that is going on around there. So meaning to say that we can grow our ICT tech divisions much bigger moving forward. So all in all, what we are saying is 2021 should be a much better year to Serba Dinamik as particularly, and it will also be a good year for a lot of other business enterprises.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Datuk. That's it for this inaugural episode for this new year. I hope you do enjoy what we have to offer. There's plenty more of interviews like this that we will be providing you throughout the entire year. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to astroawani.com. Look for Notepad over there. There are plenty of interviews that can be found there. Remember, you can also watch these kind of interviews on your mobile devices. Just download the Astro AWANI app wherever you get the application. Till then, thanks very much for watching and a happy new year.